What is your favorite useless fact? The difference between a cemetery and a graveyard. Graveyards are attached to churches. Cemeteries are standalone. Butterflies will drink blood given the opportunity. Movie trailers used to be shown after the movie, hence the name trailer. Before the golf tee was invented, golfers would carry around little bags of sand and make a mound to place their balls on. Little piles of sand. Despite their size, blue whales cannot swallow an object wider than a beach ball. The average cruising altitude of a commercial airliner is about 35,000 feet. The deepest point of the Mariana Trench is about 36,000 feet. The next time you see an airplane in the sky, imagine water going up to that point, and that's what it would feel like to be at the bottom of the ocean. Source: me. Terrified of deep water. Stonehenge, the world's most famous henge, isn't a real henge. A henge is a Neolithic earthworks, consisting of a central circular or ovoid flat plane, often including wooden or stone structures, and bordered by an embankment with an internal ditch. Stonehenge has the bank and ditch positions reversed, so whilst it is very hengey in appearance, it doesn't quite the official definition. Now to get weirder. The oldest known usage of the word henge is in reference to Stonehenge. So all actual henges are named after Stonehenge, but Stonehenge isn't a henge. A second is called a second because it is the second division of the hour by 60, the first division being a minute. The scientific name for the western lowland gorilla is gorilla. They occasionally find lions dead from starvation in Africa, not from a failure to hunt their prey, but because an ostrich kicked them in the jaw and broke it, rendering them unable to eat. Helicopter is made up of helico, meaning spiral, and ter, meaning wings, not helicopter as you would expect. Male ladybugs can mate with a dead female ladybug for up to 4 hours before realizing something is wrong. Bob the Builder has more UK #1 hits than Nirvana, Radiohead, The Who, Guns N' Roses, and Metallica combined. Ohio is the only state that doesn't share a letter with the word mackerel. Dolphins have their own names, and their names are spoken by a whistle. The original Hulk was grey, but due to ink problems, Hulk became green. A giraffe can run faster than a horse and retain water longer than a camel. Doesn't seem that useless to me though, because I've forced it into many conversations. Giant sloths are the only reason avocados exist today. The Lestodon is a direct ancestor of today's sloth, and were one of the few megafauna able to digest large avo seeds. The avos were eaten, and then the seeds pooped out, and thus avocado trees were spread throughout South America. The great sloth has been extinct for 13,000 years, but luckily the spread that did happen meant that avos survived long enough till us humans discovered and cultivated them again. Coyotes tiptoe when they want to be quiet. It's adorable. New York City is a little more to the south than Rome is. In fact, most of Europe is around the latitude of Canada. My hometown in North Germany is as north as the south end of the Hudson Bay, but luckily not that cold. Buzz Aldrin's mother's maiden name was Moon. Most toilets flush in E-flat. The duck-billed platypus is so strange looking that when the man who discovered it sent a taxidermied specimen back to the Royal Society in London, he was accused of sticking a bunch of different animals together to claim a new discovery. The femur is the strongest bone in the human body and can support up to 30 times the average human body weight. Also pound for pound, human bone is 5 times stronger than steel. Chuck E. Cheese's full name is Charles Entertainment Cheese. You could fit all of the other planets in between the Earth and the Moon. Doesn't seem right, but true. Always reminds me of just how much space is really out there. Wombat poo comes out in cubes. The unicorn is the national animal of Scotland. There exists a planet inhabited entirely by robots, a Mars. The mascot of the Rhode Island School of Design is a scrotum. Jeffrey Dahmer was a vegetarian, except for the whole cannibalism thing. The first major battle of the American Civil War, the First Battle of Bull Run, started on Wilmer McLean's property. McLean decided to move away, to get away from the war. 4 years later Robert E. Lee officially surrendered to Ulysses S. Grant in the living room of McLean's new house. McLean said the war began in my front yard and ended in my front parlor. If you shrunk the solar system down so that the sun was at the top of your head and the orbit of Pluto was at your feet, Uranus would be right about where you'd expect it to be. Only 3 people in history have been to the deepest point in the ocean. One of them also directed the 2 highest grossing films in history. Netflix spent $0 on marketing its DVD rental business in 2014, but over 6 million people still used it. Vampires can't see their reflections on mirrors because mirrors used to be made of silver, and as you know, vampires and silver aren't friends. So scientifically, vampires should be able to see their reflections in glass mirrors. The butter knife was invented in medieval France to stop the lords from stabbing each other with knives at dinners and feasts. Wayne Gretzky was so good so consistently, even if he never scored a single goal, he would still have the most points in an NHL career. The phrase yanking your chain originates from minicuts repurposed to be used as toilets. These toilet minicuts had no brakes, so the miners would place the chain under its tracks, and a common prank was to sneak up and yank the chain out, causing the victim to hurry and finish before he rolled away. Every Syrian hamster, your typical pet store one, comes from a single pair in Syria that was bred in captivity. They are very resilient to endogamy and their genome is almost identical, which is why they are used a lot in labs. Kansas City, Missouri, never enforced prohibition, which means while it was a federal law, all through the 20s and 30s you could walk into any bar and sit next to a cop and order a drink. That place really loves their drink. Catfish are the only animals that naturally have an odd number of whiskers. If Project Manhattan had fallen behind or wasn't working, the US had a working plan to drop giant bombs of artificially hibernated bats with nitroglycerine bombs on their backs over Japan. They would float down just before dawn, slowly warming up out of hibernation, then fly out of the contraption. When the sun came up, they would go hide in the roofs of all the buildings, which were wood in 1940s Japan. Then, the bombs would go off. Tokyo would burn to the ground. They tested it outside of a base in Rowley, Texas, Rowley, New Mexico, and it worked perfectly, other than the fact that they miscalculated the wind and the bats flew back to the base instead of the small fake town they built, and burned down the flight line. The first car to have a cup holder was a Dodge Caravan. There's a star a few thousand light years away from Earth that has the composition of a giant diamond. Astronomers named it Lucy, after the Beatles song Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. The most powerful bomb ever tested, the Tsar bomb, was the explosive equivalent of dropping 2 Mount Everest from the same height. Edit, because nobody asked. The energy of 1 Mount Everest dropped from 10,500 meters is about 1.40552 x 10 carat 12 kilogram x 9.81 ms carat 2 x 10,500 meter equals 1.45 x 10 carat 17 joules. Edit 2. Proposal to change all measurements to Mount Everest. 1 Mount Everest of length is the current height of Mount Everest, or about 8850 meters. 1 Mount Everest of time is the time it takes Mount Everest to grow a Mount Everest of length taller, or about 6.97734 x 10 carat 13 seconds. 1 Mount Everest of mass is the mass of Mount Everest, or about 1.4052 x 10 carat 12 kilograms. 1 Mount Everest of velocity is the speed at which Mount Everest grows, or about 1.2683916 x 10 carat 10 ms carat 1. 1 Mount Everest of force is the force it takes to accelerate a mass of 1 Mount Everest with 1 Mount Everest of velocity, or a reasonable 178 newtons. Edit 3. For those very few interested, Mount Everest of energy, using the definition W equals Fm, conflicting with the energy earlier calculate, and power can be found in the comments somewhere. They are: energy, about 1,577,734 joules. Power, about 2.26122511 x 10 carat 8 W. I'm taking this way too far and way too seriously. Saltwater taffy is a thing, because some guy's shop was flooded, and he was too cheap to make a fresh batch. The average person has about 1 testicle. Charlie Chaplin placed 3rd in a Charlie Chaplin look-alike contest. At the height of his power, Pablo Escobar was spending approximately $2,600 per month on the rubber bands used to wrap his stacks of cash. Andre the Giant was chauffeured to school each day by the playwright Samuel Beckett, author of Waiting for Godot. Beckett lived in the same French village and owned a convertible car in which Andre could fit, unlike the school bus. The Outer Bridge crossing connects Staten Island, New York to Perth Amboy, New Jersey. It's the outermost bridge connecting you to New York City geographically. It was named after Eugenius Harvey Outer Bridge. Koalas leave fingerprints so much like humans that they are sometimes collected as evidence at crime scenes. Male snakes have 2 peens. My daughter asked me one day if snakes have peens. She was probably 3, and I didn't know. So I checked with her later on. Not only do they have peens, but they have 2, and female snakes can store sperm from up to 3 different partners separately for like 6 months and choose which one she uses to fertilize her eggs. It's amazing, but has never been useful to me in any way. Pineapples contain an enzyme called bromelain that works fairly quickly in breaking down animal cells. This is why eating pineapple causes that burning feeling. The pineapple is eating you as you're eating it. A strawberry always contains the same amount of seeds regardless of its stage of maturity. A slice of watermelon has roughly the same amount of sugar content as a small candy bar, but contains a lot more vitamins/minerals. While we're at watermelons, they also originally grew in dry arid grasslands. If you can surprise a person as they are about to sneeze, you can interrupt and stop it entirely. Try yelling watermelon at the next person who's about to sneeze. In the 1990 movie Ghost, Rita Miller's bank account number is $92,631,043. I saw the movie once when I was 7. I'm turning 34 next month. Snails can sleep up to 3 years. Falling out of an airplane is safer than falling out of a 6-story building because you have time to plan your landing and maybe even grab some debris to slow your fall. Useless because first, I have no plans to do either, and second, I highly doubt that I would survive either. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Peter Parker is said to have received his power 6 months before the events of Captain America: Civil War. In Spider-Man: Homecoming, we are given evidence that Vine existed and died before the events of the movie. Given these facts, Peter Parker in the MCU must have designed his costume based on the It Is Wednesday My Dudes Guys Vine. The song Maniac from Flashdance was not originally written with that movie in mind. The musician who wrote it made another song that the producers hated, but he recorded it on the B-side of a song he made about a slasher movie villain because he was frugal. The producers heard that song and told him to change the lyrics to make it about dancing. The original lyrics included "He's a maniac. Maniac, that's for sure. He will kill your cat and nail it to your door." The dot over Ryan J is called a tittle. It is physically impossible for pigs to look up into the sky. Coca-Cola would be green if coloring weren't added to it. Taylor Swift and I are the same shoe size. Jupiter is getting smaller. It loses about 2 centimeters in size each year. Orange juice has more electrolytes than Gatorade or Powerade. A pig's orgasm lasts for 30 minutes. Lobsters pee out of their eyes. The villain of the Power Rangers show, Rita Repulsa, didn't have a hat. Her hat was just her braided hair. I never noticed as a kid, but did later on, and was appalled on how I never saw it. When sober rats prefer no music, but when on cocaine, they prefer soft jazz. Easter is always the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox, March 20/21. A coworker always would ask me random things and I like research, so I would look it up for her. This one has always stuck with me for whatever reason. Her nickname for me is the Queen of Useless Knowledge. I don't really believe that any knowledge is useless. Outer space is very cold, however, since there is no way for that heat to transfer out of your body, you would not freeze. In fact, you would be very warm. It was a major problem during space flights, so Arnold wouldn't turn into an ice cube when removing his helmet. Suck on that, magic school bus. The football huddle was first used in the 1890s when Paul Hubbard, the quarterback for Gaylord at a deaf college in Washington, D.C., and our university had his offense form a tight circle so they could discuss plays without the other team seeing what they were signing. The knot used in a bow tie is the same one used for your shoelaces. Up until the 1970s it was illegal to fly a kite in the downtown area of Chicago. I found out because when my friends and I were 15 we bought some cheap kites at the dollar store and decided to take them with us downtown to fly them. We started trying to fly them by the Art Institute when we got stopped by a cop. He told us that kites were not allowed to be flown anywhere in the downtown area, and if he saw us doing it again he would give us a $250 citation. It seemed kind of weird, since Millennium and Grant Park were both in the downtown area, but we didn't argue. I looked it up years later and found out that it was a law, but it did not apply to us then in the early 2000s. Dude was just being a peen. A group of jellyfish is called a smack. That this exact same question has been posted to r/askreddit a total 32 times, including yesterday, but never received more than 719 upvotes until today. The inside wall of your cheek is made from the same stuff as the inside wall of a vag. The sweat of hippos is colored red. More humans are killed every year by cows than by sharks. The words island, despite looking almost the same and meaning the same thing, are unrelated and have completely different etymological roots. Isle is ultimately derived from Latin and island is Germanic. The entire weight of the electrons that make up the internet weigh the same as one strawberry. During the course of your life, your head travels more distance than your feet due to the curvature of the earth, since the circumference/arc is larger from being higher up. Op's mother is obese and promiscuous. If you're standing in Detroit and start walking due south, the first foreign country you'll reach is Canada. That 2 McDonald's smalls make a medium, and 1 medium and a small make a large. I hate my job. Bill Paxton is the only actor ever to killed by an alien, Predator and a Terminator. Saudi Arabia has to import sand from Australia. Julius Caesar was stabbed 23 times. I've waited and waited for this to come up at pub trivia. Never once has it come in handy. The difference between a cake and a biscuit. Cake hardens as it gets old. Biscuit softens as it gets old. I believe this is why Jaffa cakes, for you Brits, can legally be seen as a cake as opposed to a biscuit, as they harden when they get old. This was also used in a case regarding the taxation on the product, if my memory is correct. There are 10 factorial seconds in 6 weeks. 10 seconds equals 10, 6, 9, 8, 7, 5, 4, 3, 2 seconds equals 9, 8, 7, 5, 4, 3, 2 minutes equals 9, 8, 7, 2 hours equals 3, 3, 8, 7, 2 hours equals 3, 3, 8, 7, 2 hours equals 3, 7, 2 days equals 3, 2 weeks equals 6 weeks. John Tyler, born in 1790 and President of the United States from 1841-1845, has 2 living grandchildren. No greats, his sons are still alive. The reason banana sweets don't actually taste like banana is that by far the most common banana people eat, in fact for many the only they will ever eat, is the Cavendish, but it used to be the Gros Michel. The Gros Michel was the dominant one until a disease became too prevalent and the world literally switched bananas. And banana sweets taste like the much sweeter Gros Michel. Also the Gros Michel has a much more slippery skin than the Cavendish, which is where the stereotype that banana peels are slippery comes from. It originates from the Gros Michel era, which ended in the 1950s. An adult blue whale, if laid long ways on a basketball court, would result in the game being cancelled. There is a world record in cherry pit spitting, yeah it is just that, and it's over 22 meters, 70 feet. The word oxymoron is an oxymoron. Arxus/arxes means sharp, clever, and morus/morus means foolish, idiotic. Richard the Lionheart didn't speak English. Hummingbirds are the only bird that can fly backwards. They also have an incredibly high metabolism, so they are often mere moments from starving to death. Compare that to a sloth. whose metabolism is so slow, if it eats too much in one go it can starve to death before it's had a chance to digest its food. It's also more painful for a sloth to have a crap than give birth. Speaking of overeating, squids have donut-shaped brains and their digestive tract goes through the hole in the middle of their brains. Therefore if they eat too much they can give themselves brain damage. Apparently when Johnny Depp played the role of Willy Wonka, he was imagining being Bush while he was incredibly stoned. Edit. He played the part as Bush being stoned. Sorry about the confusion. The dashes you see when driving on the highway are actually 13 feet long. In the US there are 41 independent cities that aren't within a county: Baltimore, Maryland, Carson City, Nevada, St. Louis, Missouri. The other 38 are in Virginia because of their state constitution. Christopher Columbus was directly responsible for one of the worst Adam Sandler movies. The director of Pixels was named Christopher Columbus. Spoiler. When elephants see humans the same chemical reaction happens in their brains as when a human sees a puppy. Elephants think we are cute. A merry-go-round is just horses and a carousel has all types of animals. British keypads are in the key of C major. If you assume birthdays are an even distribution, then in a class of 23 kids, there's a 50% chance that 2 kids have the same birthday. It seems counterintuitive at first. If there's 365 days in a year, how can there be a 50/50 chance of a match with just 23 kids? It makes more sense. However, when you realize that it's not just one birthday being compared to 22 others, it's 23 birthday each being compared to 22 others. So the first kid gets compared to 22 others. Then the second kid gets compared to 21 others, 22 minus the one kid he was already compared to, etc. You wind up with 22 plus 21 plus 20 plus 19 plus 18 plus 17 plus 16 plus 15 plus 14 plus 13 plus 12 plus 11 plus 10 plus 9 plus 8 plus 7 plus 6 plus 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1 equals 253. So there's actually 253 comparisons being made. 253 chances for a match. This could be nonsense, but I've read that the reason pirates wore eye patches is so they could have one eye focused to the darkness, and when they go below deck they switch the patch over and can see better. Did I win the race to tell people that the plastic/metal tips of shoelaces are called aglets? Female kangaroos have 3 vags. The word bookkeeper or bookkeeping are the only words in English to use 3 sets of double letters. Don't know why, but that one stuck with me forever. That 1729 is the smallest positive integer that can be expressed as the sum of 2 cubes in 2 different ways. 9^3 plus 10^3 and 1^3 plus 12^3. Credited to Ramanujan. Turtles can breathe through their buttholes. Newborn elephants haven't yet learned to use their trunk to aid in drinking, so they often fall headfirst into water while trying to drink with their mouths. When threatened, sea cucumbers can vomit up their internal organs as a defense mechanism to surprise a potential predator and then regrow their organs. The female human eye can't see a color difference measured in lab color values on a printed piece below a DE of 3 after staring at the piece for 15 seconds or more, unless they are large solids overlapping. The male eye generally can't discern the difference below a DE of 4. Women have more color cones in their eyes, which helps with this rather impressive ability, whereas men have less and are far more likely to be color blind. I'm male and teach color reproduction methodology and science to marketing teams, etc. To me, beige is thing beige. Let's move on. Potato chips were made in the 1800s by a frustrated chef. When a customer was complaining about how his French fries weren't crispy enough, the chef tried many times, and every time the customer complained, the chef got so frustrated that he cut the potatoes paper thin and fried them. The customer loved them, and the restaurant decided to keep making them. The International Space Station is at approximately the same altitude as the northern, or southern, lights. As a result, NASA has some super cool videos of the aurora as seen from the side. Sonic the Hedgehog's middle name, in the Archie comics, was Morris. His parents were Jules and Bernadette Hedgehog. and his uncle was Charles Uncle Chuck Hedgehog, all three of whom were robots due to Dr. Robotnik/Eggman's roboticizer, which by the way, was invented by Uncle Chuck to cure his brother Jules of a mortal injury. The old darky sonic lore was ridiculously in-depth. Since bats' wings are made up of the skin between their fingers, they fly through the power of jazz hands. Once bread becomes toasted, can never go back. Lobsters used to be served to prisoners because they were so cheap. Anatidophobia is the fear that somewhere, somehow, a duck is watching you. There is actually no such thing as a vegetable. Vegetable is a culinary term for all kinds of plant-based food, from legumes to tubers, and not a scientific classification. Therefore, tomatoes are both a fruit and a vegetable. Defenestration is the technical term for throwing someone out of a window. The pound or hashtag key number is called an octatroph. Buffalo 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 is a grammatically correct sentence. A sloth spends approximately 85% of its life hanging completely upside down, mainly because it requires no effort. It is not uncommon for a sloth to pass away and remain securely hooked to its final branch. Tigers have striped skin as well as fur,